Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this afternoon's show. Welcome to the Jayden Bryce Show, the show where we talk about the hottest topics in the world of sports. I'm your host, Jayden, and I am so glad to be with you all today. Got an action-packed show, got a couple matchups that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys shocking the Philadelphia Eagles yesterday in Jerry World. We're going to discuss the Kansas City Chiefs showing their championship pedigree against the Indianapolis Colts in their overtime win yesterday. We are going to talk about some Caleb Williams and the Bears. Rams being the favorites, I think, so far right now to win the Super Bowl. And the Detroit Lions having a little tough outing yesterday against famous Jameis. Jameis Winston yesterday looked like prime Jameis Winston back at Florida State. But we'll get into all of that. But before we do, thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoy. Got an action-packed show ready. It's Sunday, Monday recap. And it's time to get to all the best action. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, share the show to any of your friends and family, and check out my show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But before we get into anything else, let's go ahead and get into today's show. Because if you were unaware, my Dallas Cowboys took down the Philadelphia Eagles. And my biggest takeaway, and we'll discuss this from the Eagles' point of view and Dallas's point of view. I'm going to get right to the point. I want to gloat a little bit, but I'll save that afterwards. But let's just go ahead and get to the point. As long as I've been covering the Cowboys from, specifically from the Mike McCarthy era, even I was thinking about when Jason Garrett was the head coach. Never has a Dallas Cowboys team made a comeback like they did yesterday. I know a lot of people were saying that this was the biggest comeback in franchise history. It's actually tied. It happened back in 1999. But this is a testament of how big of a win yesterday was for the Dallas Cowboys. Granted, I'm not one of those. Do I have the fan in me thinks this team can run the table and win 5 out of the next 2, 4 out of the next 2? I don't know. But if we really think about it, it's a big win just for the culture. What the Cowboys they're trying to build towards something going into next year. And you're a team, you go down 21-0, and historically, specifically in the Mike McCarthy era, we've seen the Cowboys go on to get blundered, losing 40-1. Sorry, not 40-1, but 40-10, 40-14. It was 21-7 going into halftime. And even going into halftime, saying like, man, this is just a long feat. I mean, you're even playing an Eagles team who, historically, when they get leads like this, they are able to hold on to them. And the Dallas Cowboys are normally front runners and they're never able to come back. But yesterday they were able to come back, led by Dak Prescott and even though he had a couple of errant throws, but majority of the game he was excellent. George Pickens continues to show his case for being a legit number 1 wide receiver and continuing his path to earning number 1 type money. I know last week we discussed on Saturday roughly, about the Brandon Ayuk and him getting paid all that money he did. And I said, look at George Pickens in comparison to Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk was paid $30 million. If you compare, just look at the highlights. Look at the capabilities of George Pickens in comparison to Brandon Ayuk as a number 2 receiver. I'm dropping the bag on George Pickens all day and every day. Brian Schottenheimer, Dallas. It seems like this marriage for George Pickens has been great. It's worked out. The change of scenery, all that is good. And George Pickens balled yesterday. I mean, absolutely balled. He had a touchdown, and he just made big plays after big plays. The big catch over Cooper DeJean, getting double teamed. Like, he was making plays yesterday. And he made the big play to close out the game yesterday for the Cowboys. The O-line held their ground. We were hearing things about Jalen Phillips and Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis. Yeah, their names were getting called early on. But shout out to the offensive line for the Cowboys, Tyler Booker, even though he got hurt. Not Tyler Booker, Tyler Guyton, even though he got hurt. Tyler Booker, I saw some of his tape today, roughly this morning. He done an exceptional job against Jalen Carter. Jalen Phillips, didn't hear much out of him yesterday. Terrence Steele, Holden. They did a great job yesterday. And even on the D-line, they went to work against that Eagles offensive front. Quinnen Williams, he had a season high 8 pressures yesterday. Osa Odigizua got a big sack on Jalen Hurts to give the Cowboys back the ball to win the game. This team kept making big plays. CD, on the other hand, buddy, we got to get together. Like, CD was absolutely, outside of everything that happened yesterday, CD Lamb was the only negative that I can really think of. And that's pretty good, saying that this is a guy in CD Lamb who you've been able to count on for the last 4 years. So if CeeDee Lamb's your problem, and CeeDee Lamb's problem right now is just catching the football, that's one problem you want to have if you're the Dallas Cowboys. This was a textbook Dallas Cowboys win. It is something that is super uncharacteristic, and it is something to think. Does Jerry actually have the right players and the right pieces? Was the Micah Parsons move legit and validated because of all the question marks? And we've heard the internal noise within the locker room about Micah Parsons being an absolute headache. Getting him out of that locker room, you get those extra 2 first-round picks. You add in Quinnen Williams. There was a clip of Sam Williams post-game talking about how Overshawn and Williams and all these guys got together in halftime before the coaches even got into the locker room. And I was like, guys, we got to do a job. Like, we can literally turn this game around. And it seems like that trade is going to work out. And you're fixing to get 2 first round. The future of the Dallas Cowboys is super bright. Super bright. And we got to give credit to Brian Schottenheimer for the win yesterday. We got to give credit to Dak. Got to give some credit to Jerry Jones. This team, if you watched them yesterday, they're just missing a couple of pieces. But the Dallas Cowboys had a huge win yesterday. It was uncharacteristic. The Dallas Cowboys under Mike McCarthy, they lose that game 10 times out of 10. But the Brian Schottenheimer Cowboys, they have heart. Look at the clip of Elijah Clark on the punt return. The kid had heart. Tyler Booker, he said every time that he went up to Dak Prescott, he told Dak Prescott, believe. These guys have a mentality for winning, and Brian Schottenheimer is establishing that, and it is getting within the locker room, and they are soaking it up. And it's led by somebody in Quinnen Williams, who was Dallas's trade acquisition. That was getting questioned by everybody. And the move seems like it has worked out. They did not let Saquon Barkley do anything yesterday. He was literally non-existent. And Dallas comes out with a big win. And they continue to give themselves life. You come back 21-0, and you get this energy leading into Thanksgiving, and you get a chance to show in front of your fans. You get a chance to show up and beat a 3-time Super Bowl champion in Patrick Mahomes on Thanksgiving. So that matchup is setting up, as Greeny and everyone today in ESPN said, that matchup is leading up to be the most watched game in NFL history. There is no doubt in my mind, I think it will be. After what the Chiefs did, and we're going to get to them in the next segment, but after what the Kansas City Chiefs did yesterday, coming back and then Dallas coming back, that game is set up to be an all-time high. Great game. But let's move on it from Philadelphia's point of view. And I really think Philly can be the bigger headline coming out of this game, because me personally, I feel like Dallas, even though my heart says, and I said it earlier, my heart says they can make a run, but analytically and logically, they just put themselves in too deep of a hole for a legitimate playoff push. But this game really had a lot to say about Philly. Because if we look at how this team played, this offense and A.J. Brown seems to be validated week in and week out. This offense is not getting resolved. We are fixing to be in Thanksgiving. And for some reason, the Philadelphia Eagles have moments, and we've seen it multiple times in multiple games this season. When we think about the Vikings, the Broncos, the Rams, we've seen halves where the Philadelphia's offense is absolutely surgical, and we saw it yesterday. A.J. Brown getting all these targets, Devontae Smith, deep ball, like they were making plays. And then in the next half, they don't know how to play offense anymore. They don't know how to play football. Kevin Patullo, did you forget how to call plays? Like, all these question marks seem to come up every single game. It is week 12 going on week 13. You got a big matchup against the Bears on Friday for the Black Friday game. And that team there, they're going to be ready to play too. Why is it that this is a common theme week in, week out when it comes to Philly? I do not understand it. And something that is very glaring as well, and people keep bringing it up, and Dan Orlowski had a great tweet that he said this morning. Saquon Barkley has as many negative runs as Ashton Jeanty for the Raiders, a rookie who is running behind the worst offensive line in football. Granted, the Eagles' offensive line is nowhere near as dominant as they were last year and the year before that when they went to the Super Bowl back in 2023. But this should be a top 5 to 7 offensive line. Cam Jurgens, he's okay. You still got Mailata. Lane Johnson's hurt at the moment. You got Eric Dickerson. And yesterday, they were not able to run the football. Eric Dickerson made this comment. Somebody in Philadelphia media, a beat writer, asked him, why can't we get the run game going? And his excuse was, we weren't prepared for a 5-man front from the Dallas Cowboys. That's a Nick Sirianni problem. Where's the preparation? Like, this offense for Philly is mind-boggling. They can't even run the football with Saquon Barkley, someone who's coming back for running 2,000 yards. And even yesterday, and we got to put a little bit of the blame on Saquon Barkley, because you look at a couple plays in the open field when he got the ball, and he was letting Overshawn, and this is no slight against Overshawn. Overshawn's a great linebacker. I mean, he's super talented, but he's coming off of 2 ACLs. And he pretty much blew his knee out last year. And a guy in Saquon Barkley, who is one of the most elusive backs you can find in the history of the NFL, and he was getting tackled into open field yesterday by Demarion Overshawn. Like, there is something psychological that is going on with this Philadelphia team. To me, it's far past X's and O's when it pertains to the players, but it is X's and O's for the coach. Because it makes no sense that Saquon Barkley played the way he did yesterday. Like, it just made no sense to me. But ultimately, I don't think this team is winning the Super Bowl. They are spiraling on offense week in and week out. And Jalen Hurts, you can keep going to the podium week in and week out and say, we're going to figure it out. Dude, it is week 12 going on week 13. You have roughly 4 or 5 games left in the season. If you look around the NFC and all the firepower on offense that your defense is going to have to go up against, you're going to have to score some points. When you're facing all the elites in the NFC, you can't go out there and do what you did against Dallas. You can't spot them 24 unanswered points. I think their last 8 drives, they punted 6 times and turned and fumbled twice. Something along those lines. It is just absolutely disastrous what happened in Philly yesterday. I would love to be on a fly on the wall for local media in Philly. I know they were having an absolute field day with what happened yesterday. And I will get into more of this in a separate video. I want to talk about this game some more. We're going to go ahead and move on. But that was a big win for Dallas. And my heart wants to harp on, we got a chance, but Dallas has still put themselves in a big hole. But the thing with me always is, it's the Philadelphia Eagles. You got to be the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay? I despise Philadelphia Eagles, and ask my girlfriend yesterday, I got a legit attitude and was getting mad at the world yesterday because of how Dallas showed up in the first half to play football. I'm like, dude, out of all the games, you got the Super Bowl defending champs coming into your house in Jerry World, and they, you felt like you should have beat them in the first game. You come out this lackluster to start the game. I was absolutely mad. And to my degree, I had no faith in them coming back in this game. Like, none. I had a little bit after they scored the one at halftime. I was like, okay, they scored the 7 points at halftime. But I feel like coming out of half, I feel like Jalen Hurts was fixing to go and walk the dog. But he didn't. Kudos to the Dallas Cowboys. That was an absolute huge win. But speaking of another huge win, What about the Kansas City Chiefs? The Kansas City Chiefs yesterday showed their championship pedigree. The Grim Reaper, Patrick Mahomes, showed why he has won 3 Super Bowls. He's been to 5 of the last 6 Super Bowls. And he showed the reason why the Chiefs can be potentially dangerous if teams like the Colts continue to let the Chiefs hang around. Yesterday, we got to be totally 100% honest with ourselves. Patrick Mahomes was not great yesterday. Statistically, and honestly, he was missing a lot of throws. He was not good yesterday. He was 29 for 46. He threw for 350 yards, no touchdowns, and 1 interception. They were penalized a lot yesterday, a lot of boneheaded penalties. Now, some of them were little bullcrap penalties, like the one penalty where they ran Wildcat with Travis Kelce. It was roughly, I think, their first touchdown in the game, and they got called back for a face mask that really was phantom. Kind of iffy. But Patrick Mahomes wasn't great, but he made the plays that he needed to make when they ultimately needed it. And to be fair, Kareem Hunt, he ran for 100 yards. He only averaged 3.5 yards a carry. Rashee Rice had 141 yards. He seems like he's got a little hamstring issue coming off a short week. I don't know how effective he is going to be on Thursday against Dallas. But for me, and me personally, this game really, for me, had a lot more to do about the Indianapolis Colts. When you watch that game, and I even thought about this midway, and I looked it up. I was just sitting here curious. I'm like, dude, what is the Chiefs' time of possession? It felt like, definitely in the second half, the Colts never had the football. Never. The Colts could not get off the field on third down, and the Colts could not stay on the field on third down. Offensively, in the second half, the Colts were 2-7 on third down. They only had 5 first downs, and they had 4 straight 3-and-outs in the fourth quarter and overtime. What were we all saying about Daniel Jones? All that talk is starting to get a little bit relevant. And back to just time of possession, the Chiefs had 42 minutes of time of possession in comparison to the 25 minutes that the Colts had the ball. And Jonathan Taylor did not do anything yesterday. The Chiefs' game plan was, I am going to make Daniel Jones beat me. And they put the game in Daniel Jones' hands, and we saw what happened in the second half. In the first half, you watch the game, and it's like, this game's over. It felt like it was over. And even in the second half, when the Chiefs got the ball, it felt like they were struggling to even score. So we're sitting here thinking, 20-9. Going into the fourth quarter, it's like this game's over. And then Daniel Jones turns into a potential pumpkin. Daniel Jones was 19 for 31, 181 yards, 2 touchdowns. But if we look at the context of it, he was abysmal in the latter half of the third quarter, all of the fourth quarter, and overtime. And this is really what scares me about the Colts. You have all these great weapons. You have Tyler Warren. You have Josh Downs, Pittman. Like, they all contributed. But what if that day Jonathan Taylor doesn't have a game and is put in the hands of Daniel Jones, and they say, Daniel Jones, go win me a game? Granted, you're at Arrowhead. This is a big game. The Chiefs, they need it. But look at how the game went. That loss for the Colts was absolutely inexcusable. Like, cannot happen. We're talking about a Chiefs team that was like, and if I am the Colts defense this morning, and even on that plane ride home yesterday, I'm absolutely mad. Because I'm sitting here like, dude, what more do you want me to do? Like, we are keeping the Chiefs from scoring. We are trying our best. Like, we are letting them chew this clock out. Like, can y'all not go on offense and just get a good drive going down the field? Like, this game for me had a lot more to say about the Colts. And we're talking about a Colts team who have pretty much went all in this year. They're already having conversations about wanting to extend Daniel Jones. I would kind of put that on a halt right now. But you got that. You trade away 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner. And granted, they showed up and played well yesterday. But if you're the Colts, like, we have to get better. We've dropped a couple of games that we had no business doing. And we're coming off a bye, and we did that yesterday. In the way that what game was going, it was just absolutely abysmal. But the Kansas City Chiefs, credit to them, they got a good win. But I don't love them because of their inability to get pressure without sending the house. We saw multiple times in the fourth quarter, and even in overtime, as soon as they got them to third down, they sent an all-out blitz. And if you want me to be honest, if Daniel Jones wasn't at quarterback, those plays would have been made. So what happens when you play the elites of the elite teams in the AFC and you have that type of strategy? Because without sending the house, the Chiefs can't even get pressure on the quarterback. Daniel Jones was able to pretty much sit back, relax, and do whatever he wanted to do yesterday when the Chiefs do not blitz. And in the same theme, Mahomes is pressing. A lot of things were happening that were uncharacteristic of Patrick Mahomes yesterday because you don't have a run game. Your wide receivers were pretty hurt yesterday. And you had really not a lot of places to throw the ball. And you had to manufacture a lot of plays. He had to use his legs. And he made the plays. At the end of the day, he made the plays. And he was under duress yesterday. He got sacked 4 times, but at the end of the day, he made the plays he needed to make, and he kept the Chiefs' season alive. And that is a testament of a champion. And Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs put that on display. I still don't love the Chiefs. I'm not sitting here thinking, oh, they're going to run the table. They have a chance to get to the Super Bowl. I don't think this is nowhere near a Super Bowl caliber team. It's a down year. They'll be fine going into the future. But yesterday really showed a testament on why you got to put teams away when you have your foot on their neck. And the Colts did not put enough pressure on the Chiefs, and they came back and got a big gutsy win to keep their season alive. And speaking of big gutsy wins, I want to talk about this guy. He was the number 1 overall pick last year in the 2024 NFL Draft. He won the Heisman. And after last season, a lot of people had all these questions talking about how well Jayden Daniels was last year. He went to the NFC Championship game. We've seen the emergence of Drake May. And we are talking about a guy in Caleb Williams and first-year head coach Ben Johnson. And part of my picks of the week, I love this game because I don't love the Steelers and I like what the Bears are doing. I took the Bears plus 2.5. Well, sorry. The Bears minus 2.5, and they covered. Because, and my takeaway from this game was this. People can't deny that Caleb Williams and the Ben Johnson combo is just here to stay. And when we talk about Caleb Williams and his ability as to be a franchise quarterback, be a leader, and have all the right traits that you need at quarterback position, go back and look at the sack that occurred when he got strip sacked in the end zone by TJ Watt. And all of a sudden, they're down 14-7 just from a big, huge play that Caleb Williams made. And last year, the Caleb Williams of last year probably would have unraveled. But because this is a different Caleb Williams, and Ben Johnson has established a culture that they will fight, crawl, and they will crawl and claw their way to a game and come out on top. That has been the testament of their season this year. They've won 8 out of the last 9. And Caleb Williams, after that strip sack, he said, you know what? I'm going to go out there and continue the ball. He had a quarterback rating of 68, a passer rating of 104, and he had 3 touchdowns. No interceptions. He had 1 turnover to 1 strip sack, but after that, he never wavered. He went out there and was dealing. He throws an absolute accurate ball. He's on time. Colston Loveland, he continues to establish himself in the offense each week. He had a touchdown pass. DJ Moore had made a couple big touchdown plays. Rome Odunze got his. They're still running the ball pretty well. Caleb Williams used his legs when they needed to. Monungai, he averaged 4 yards a carry. Luther Burden made a couple big plays. Like, what is there not to love about the Bears? And when you think about the Bears, and when you look across the division, because we're going to talk about their division rival later on, if you really compare the Bears to the Lions and the Packers, I might take the Bears over those two teams. Because Detroit, I don't think they know what they're doing on offense and their defense. They let James go crazy yesterday, which we'll discuss that later, but I like the Bears' chances against the Lions and even the Packers. Their inconsistencies offensively leads me to believe, like, yeah, I think Caleb has a good chance against the Packers. So I really do think Friday is a great test for the Bears because we're really going to get a good idea of how battle-tested and how much heart this roster and this team really has. And this was a impressive win yesterday for the Bears because you were down like pretty much your whole defense. I think they were missing like 5 cornerbacks, 3 linebackers. Like a lot of good players yesterday were not present, and they were able to go in there and get a win at home against a Pittsburgh Steelers team who were kind of desperate. And now they find themselves behind in the 8 ball, and they're not leading the division anymore. And the Ravens are number 1. And I looked at the Steelers yesterday, and I just keep finding the same mistakes. Their offense stinks. Their defense is old. That is a recipe for disaster. And their season is trending towards doomsday. The Baltimore Ravens were 1-5. Felt like they were dead to rights. And now, as of week 12 going into week 13, they currently are number 1 in the division. That is an indictment against Mike Tomlin, the Bears front office, and their horrible decision-making when it came to putting this team together. I've said it week after week. I don't like their offense. Yes, can they run the ball? I think they had pretty good success running the ball yesterday. Kenneth Gainwell averaged 9.2 yards a carry. But what about their passing game? They had no sort of passing game yesterday. You couldn't even pass the ball against a defense that didn't even have their star defensive backs. DK Metcalf was a no-show. 5 catches for 22 yards. This is a DK Metcalf who at one point held the all-time receiving record there in Seattle, but that got took away by Njigba yesterday. But we know what DK Metcalf's capabilities are. And somehow, some way, this defense just continues to be pathetic. They do nothing well. They can't run the ball. They can't pass the ball. They keep running this 3 tight end concept that just feels out of touch and out of date. And Mason Rudolph, he wasn't horrible yesterday. And people who want to say when Aaron Rodgers comes back, the Steelers will have a shot, I think not. If you look at the Steelers' schedule, you still got to play Baltimore twice. You got to play Buffalo this coming up week, and you still got to play the Lions. And the Ravens' schedule, in contrary, gets better and easier. And when you look at the rest of the schedule, the Steelers are currently 6-5. I think they'll split against the Ravens, but they are sniffing another pretty much either under 500 or barely 500 season. And at some point, the Rooney family and everyone has to look at Mike Tomlin and say, dude, what have you done for me lately? Being 500 and barely in playoff contention is not good enough at some point. You got to move on. I feel like the Steelers need a new culture, but that's just me. The offense stinks. The defense is old and severely overpaid. And yesterday, the Bears looked like a team that is super legit, and they have a very bright future with Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson. This game really was kind of like, I didn't even watch it anymore, to be honest with you, after the second half. I was even watching yesterday, John Middlecoff, and there was a couple of people, they were starting their shows relatively early, so to speak, just because of how just anemic this game was. And yeah, I'm talking about the Rams and the Bucs on Sunday Night Football. And I wanted to talk about this mainly just from the Rams' point of view, because I haven't talked much Rams. I talked about them last week in their matchup against the Seahawks. And, you know, I love Seattle and the Rams. They're like my two favorite teams in the NFL so far, and like my favorites I would love to see in the Super Bowl. But man, my takeaway from that game yesterday was pretty much the Rams feel like the clear Super Bowl favorites. This team really feels like Philly last year, where it's like, when you look across the boards at all the other teams around the league, like, this team feels complete. Did you look at that defense yesterday? Did you look at the offense yesterday? Special teams? Like, across the board. Like, this team's phenomenal. And they had a new kicker start yesterday. I don't even know what happened to their kicker, but this guy's new. You just plug him in, and this team just doesn't skip a beat. Like, this team is just so good. They have an elite offense. They have elite wide receiver tandem. Like, their defensive line is super elite. They were getting after Baker Mayfield yesterday. And Kobe Durant was just making plays. And we know a lot of question about the Rams has been their back end. Like, dude, to have one. And that was going into the trade deadline. It was like, yeah, you kind of want to trade for a defensive back. But to their credit, I mean, Kobe Durant made a couple plays yesterday. Emmanuel Forbes, he's been plugged in. They got him off of the Washington Commanders. He was a high draft pick. For some reason, it didn't work out in Washington. They've plugged him in, and he's been phenomenal. The defensive coordinator, he's just been exceptional off the board. Like, that defense is elite. That team is elite. And when you think about them, Matt Stafford, MVP year yesterday, 25 for 35, 3 touchdowns. It felt like in the first half, Stafford was playing 7-on-7 and just picking the Bucs apart. I don't know the fellas. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but McCollum, number 27, like, Devontae Adams was picking on him in the first half, just absolutely giving him the work. I mean, Chris Collinsworth even pointed it out on the broadcast. He's like, man, I feel so bad for this kid. And there was at one point during the game, it was I think it was third down or second down, one of the two. And Devontae Adams literally just dropped a back shoulder throw against McCollum. And Chris Collinsworth was like, man, finally, McCollum caught a break. Like he was just getting picked on yesterday. And that's a testament of how good Devontae Adams is. And that combo between him and Matt Stafford, he's like the go-to red zone target for Matt Stafford. I think they said that Devontae Adams, for wide receivers, he leads the league in touchdowns, or he's like second in touchdowns in receiving this year in the league. Let me look that up just to make sure. Oh, never mind. Take that back. He is tied. He is first. He has 12 touchdowns on the season. He is first right now for wide receivers when it comes to touchdown catches. And Puka Nacua, he's absolutely sensational. Don't know where Tutu Atwell is, but you were able to plug in guys like Whittington and Mumpfield. Mumpfield, never heard of the guy. He was able to make some plays yesterday. And Kyron Williams and Blake Corum, you know, they have a pretty good running back tandem, even though the stats don't say they didn't run the ball well. But we know that the Rams all year have been able to run the ball well. This team is just clear Super Bowl favorites. They have talent across the board. They're fun to watch. They're fast. They're young. And it is really crazy to sit here and think. Guys, just sit here and think for 1 second. If we just pause and really think about it, we have to literally sit here and be like, the Rams have 2 first-round picks in this upcoming draft. We know that they traded away their pick to the Falcons, and so now the Rams have the Falcons pick. This team's just going to get better for years to come. And if I'm Matt Stafford, I'm like, Les Snead is my GM. He's one of the best GMs in the league. And we have 2 first-round picks. Like, our team can only get better. And they can use that pick on a corner or a safety, one of the positions they need. And their roster's already stacked. Maybe even use it on the O-line. The Rams are just the clear Super Bowl favorites. And the Bucs, I've said it for multiple weeks. I really did not know if this team was going to reach the finish line this season just because of all the injuries. Every single star that they've had has been hurt at some point. Chris Godwin, Mbuka, Baker, uh, Mike Evans, Bucky Irvin, like all of their big players, star players, have been hurt at some point. They've had injuries across the O-line. They've had injuries on the defensive line. They've had injuries everywhere. And I was really sitting here thinking they started 5-1, and they were considered like the favorites for the Super Bowl. They were considered one of the top 5 teams in the league. And now they find themselves at 6-5 and questioning, like, are we going to make the playoffs? Because let's be honest, whoever comes out of that division, you're going to have whoever wins the division is going to make the playoffs. And if you are the Bucs, you got to win that division. That's the only way you're getting to the playoffs. And now Baker Mayfield is hurt. Who knows how severe the injury is? And yesterday, Teddy Bridgewater was borderline unwatchable yesterday. Like, he was an absolute eyesore to watch. And if you look around the NFC, if they do win the playoffs, that was just a super lopsided difference between two teams yesterday. And if you look at the contemporaries that are in the NFC, like, it felt like the Bucs have no chance. They would be good enough to win one playoff game if they were to get in. That is just how decimated this team is and how just lopsided and abysmal they looked yesterday. Yeah, you could say, I mean, it's Sunday Night Football. It's prime time. You're coming off a pretty tough loss on the road. Back-to-back road games. You had to go all the way up to New York from Florida and play that tough game against the Bills, and you scored 42 points and lost. And then the week after that, you got to travel all the way to LA to go face arguably the best team in the NFL. It's kind of like a tough task for any team, but in the same breath, like, it's the NFL. Like, you're going to have weeks like this. And if we really just look at the Buccaneers, the injuries have just caught up with them. And Baker Mayfield getting hurt last night was literally, for me, the cherry on top. Honestly, if you ask me today, if you continue to look, and the Bucs, and I said it last week, the Bucs schedule gets easier, but you still got to play the Panthers twice. So you're going to get a tiebreaker with the Panthers of some sort. And if the Panthers win tonight, they are going to be in the driver's seat for the number 1 seed in that division. And it just sucks for the Bucs. It's really heartbreaking to see a team that were exciting to watch. You had all these players, and like, they had nice aspirations early on in the season, and injuries have derailed them, and it just truly sucks. But man, my main takeaway from that game is pretty much, man, what about those Rams? Clearly look like the best team in the NFL, and they are in the running right now, clearly, for the number 1 seed. And they are going to host playoff games, and the playoff games are going to have the run through LA. Yes, the Rams don't have home field advantage. But if you're the Rams, you had to play in the snow last year, and you almost beat the Eagles. What happens is Philly has to go to LA, 75-degree weather. You're in a dome. That favors Matt Stafford. That favors the speed of the Rams. So, yeah, I love the Rams to be my favorites going to the Super Bowl, going into Thanksgiving week 13 in the NFL. The final game we want to discuss before we give a little preview of tonight's game, so to speak. Man, the Detroit Lions. I didn't know if I wanted to talk about this or roughly talk about the Shedeur Sanders game yesterday. I didn't really watch. I was so keyed in on the Cowboys yesterday that I legit just did not watch none of Shedeur's game yesterday. I'm going to go back and make a separate video about it, and we'll discuss that on a later date. But I wanted to discuss the Giants and the Lions because I had this game on Red Zone, and I was just watching it, and there was just a lot of recurring themes that I saw in that game. And my main takeaway was Jameis Winston absolutely slinging it. Now, when you look at his box score, you really can't sit here and say, like, yeah, Jameis Winston went off. But if you were watching a game like me, and which Jameis Winston, he only completed 50% of his passes. He threw a pick. and threw 2 touchdowns. But if you really watched the game, dude, Jameis was cooking. Like, he was slinging it. That offense, Wan'Dale Robinson, Theo Johnson, like, all these guys just making plays yesterday. But they have ultimately just unraveled in crunch time. But I left this game thinking about the Lions, like, the Lions being in a dogfight against Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston in a bag of chips. Kind of concerning. We're talking about a Lions team, and we talked, and I kind of foreshadowed it earlier when we talked about the Bears. Like, you got a division with the Bears and the Packers. And you still got to worry about the Eagles and the Rams. Like, Dan Campbell calling plays, kind of questionable decision. Will that turn out to kill him in the long run? I don't know. But single-handedly yesterday, Jahmyr Gibbs absolutely saved them. And felt like saved their season yesterday. If the Lions would have left this game 6-5 with the rest of the schedule they got to play, it kind of felt like, and look, this is their schedule. They got to play Dallas. They play Green Bay. They still have to play the Rams. They got to play the Steelers, and you still got to play the Bears one more time. Like, that schedule was getting absolutely brutal. So you being 6-5 in that division, it kind of felt like your season could have been over if you would have lost to the Giants, led by Jameis Winston and a bag of chips. Like, Jahmyr Gibbs absolutely saved him. He had 14.6 yards per carry yesterday. And he only carried the ball 15 times. 15 times. I will not understand that. Why didn't you give him the ball more? And I'm sitting there like Dan Campbell calling plays. Why did your running backs only have 20 carries? David Montgomery touched the ball 5 times. Jameson Williams only had 3 targets. I thought the purpose of you calling offense now was to kind of get everybody more involved. You wanted more continuity. Why is it? And, you know, it's kind of good that you're targeting Amon-Ra St. Brown 13 times. But why are we targeting Amon-Ra St. Brown 13 times? And J-Mo only gets 3 targets. Jahmyr Gibbs got 12 targets. Like, yeah, I get it, but the whole point of the offense was we're trying to get everybody involved. And yet, when I talked about the decision roughly 2 weeks ago, I was sitting here like, it's kind of questionable for you to make this type of decision, and your offense was already like top 3 across the board in multiple categories. So what was the point? And a lot of people have brought up, like, yeah, Dan Campbell, when it comes to the game decision, game management thing, that was kind of his forte. But, you know, when you're taking over the play calling, that part of it kind of gets hard. And Dan Campbell was making some questionable decisions yesterday. And honestly, the Giants kind of gave him the game. If you look, and this is part of game management, why are you going for fourth and goal on your own 6-yard line when there's 2 minutes left and you're going to have to force the Lions to go down and get a touchdown? The likelihood of you picking up a 4th and 6 from the 6-yard, not a 4th and 6, yeah, it's essentially 4th and 6, but a 4th and goal from your 6-yard line, not very likely. And that was part of the Giants just continuing to unravel. And the Giants have, I mean, they showed it earlier in the graphic. Like, the Giants, if they only played 3 quarters this season, the Giants could be like 7-4. Literally. There was like 5 games they showed where the Giants were leading going into the 4th quarter and ended up losing. But I feel like not having Sam Laporta, because I think they have pretty much reported that it is unlikely that Sam Laporta is going to be available for the rest of the season. He is going to be missing the rest of the season. And when you watch this game, it's like, kind of wish you had Sam Laporta, because Jahmyr Gibbs was featured a lot in your offense. And Sam Darnold yesterday kind of got pressured a lot. He was sacked 3 times, but he got pressured a lot. Kind of concerning for offensive line. This offensive line back-to-back weeks did not play well. The Giants' defensive line held their ground yesterday. And defensively, they made Jameis Winston look like Florida State prime Jameis Winston. Wan'Dale Robinson out there making plays. Theo Johnson looking like George Kittle. I was like, what is going on? And, you know, last week, they were able to contain Philly, but we know how anemic their offense is. And they were without some key players in DJ Reed. And, you know, they were there yesterday. Outside of roughly, Terrion Arnold didn't play yesterday. But DJ Reed and everybody else was still there. Lee McNeil, Hutchinson, which he got the game-sealing sack. But if you're the Lions, and if I'm a Lions fan, I'm kind of concerned that we were in a dogfight with Jameis Winston and and no offense to the Giants, a bunch of nobodies. Like, they don't have Cam Scatterboo. They don't have Malik Neighbors, which he kind of, I guess, sounded off on the Giants on Twitter and roughly deleted it right after he said it. I never saw the post. They had it on ESPN this morning, but I'm not about to go into all that. But yeah, kind of concerning that we were in a dogfight with that type of team. And a guy in Isaiah Hodgins makes some plays, and he's fresh off the practice squad. Like, yeah, if I'm the Lions, look, I'm not biting into the Lions. I kind of was drinking some of the Kool-Aid after they had like a big win against the Bucs on Monday Night Football, roughly in mid-October. But I've said it since week one. I was sitting there like, dude, offensive line is not good, and that is supposed to be their strong suit. They're supposed to play. They're supposed to have one of the best offensive lines. They're going to run the football, pound it down your throat, and that's how they're going to beat you. But this is back-to-back weeks where the offensive line hasn't played well. And a player in Jahmyr Gibbs, he pretty much single-handedly bailed you out. So, and I teased it earlier against the Bears when we were talking about the Bears. I'm like, if I was to pick between both teams right now in a game, no matter the site, I kind of feel like I'm picking the Bears. I really do. And roster-wise, you look at the rosters, it's like, yeah, the Lions have a better roster, but for some reason, back-to-back weeks, they're not playing well. And their schedule just gets absolutely worse as the week goes on. So if I'm a Lions fan, kind of worried about how this season's going and how it could possibly go and unravel in the leading weeks towards the end of the season. So that's pretty much all I got to talk about when it pertains to the action from yesterday. At some point during this week, we got Thanksgiving, so I'm gonna have to shoot the show on Wednesday morning. But I got a couple things I want to talk about. I want to get to Shedeur Sanders, talk about the Eagles a little bit more. So there's a lot of more things that I want to get to, and we'll discuss that at a later date. I'm gonna probably do this Shedeur Sanders video singly tomorrow. But tonight's game, I don't have this written up. This is straight off the cuff. So we got San Francisco and Carolina. Carolina, I think, what's the line on this game? I want to say the Niners are at home. They should be favored. Yeah. San Francisco favored -7.5. This is a big game for Carolina. Obviously, we know we just discussed it a while ago with Rams and the Bucs. If the Carolina Panthers win tonight, they are number one in their division, and they have a pretty good shot to make the playoffs. And this is the same thing for the San Francisco 49ers. Like, the San Francisco 49ers, they kind of need this game too because of they're trying to get into a wild card. They don't have a shot with how easy the Rams schedule is going to be in comparison to their own. You still got the Seahawks in your own division, so you got to stack some wins to get a wild card spot. So this game is absolutely huge for them too. So this is actually set up to be a pretty good game. I was kind of shocked at first when I saw somebody bring up like, yeah, the Panthers play Monday night. I'm like, the Carolina got a Monday night game? But Roger Goodell and the schedule makers, they absolutely cooked because this game has a whole lot of playoff implications on it, and it's going to be a very good game. I want to see if Bryce Young can continue to strive and double down on the performance that he put up, and obviously probably arguably his best career performance that he had against the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday. I want to see if he doubles down on that. Can Tet be a difference maker defensively? Can they stop Brock Purdy, get some pressure? I really like Carolina's chances in this game. I really do. I know that the 49ers came out last week against the Cardinals and balled out. I totally get it. But man, this Carolina team, they're scrappy. Obviously, they beat my Dallas Cowboys, and they beat the Packers as well. So you cannot, if you're the 49ers, you cannot sleep on this Carolina Panthers team. Now, obviously, I cannot speak on the 49ers. I didn't even watch the game last week. I don't even know what they look like against the Cardinals. I just know Brock Purdy and George Kittle and the whole crew, they put up a light show. They scored like 42 points. But just thinking about it from a grand scheme of things, I think both teams match up pretty well. And you know me, I'm not 100% sold on Brock Purdy. I thought they looked just as good under Mac Jones. That's just me personally. But I want to see how well Brock Purdy plays tonight as well. I want to see how well he looks. Can Christian McCaffrey play well against his former team? And ultimately, the number one thing when it comes to the Niners, Can they come out of this game healthy? Because they are a walking infirmary over there in San Francisco. I don't understand. I will not understand how their strength and conditioning coach has a job after this season with the plethora of injuries they have endured. Like, it has been unprecedented, the amount of injuries that the San Francisco 49ers have had this year. But it's an exciting watch, and I can't wait to get into more and be able to analyze the game for you guys tomorrow. And that will be it for today's show. Thank you all for joining me. That is my thoughts pretty much from yesterday's action in the NFL. I will have a show on Wednesday, and I will have one on Friday as well. So we're not going to be slowing down over the Thanksgiving break. So I will see you all before then. So I'm not going to say happy Thanksgiving, but I will say safe travels to any of you who are traveling on Wednesday to go see family, catching flights. I know the airport's going to be busy, so I wish you all safe travels to wherever your destination lies to go spend time with your family over the Thanksgiving holiday. Got a lot to talk about. Wednesday's going to be a big show because Wednesday I'm going to have to talk about the Thursday games coming up, because obviously Thursday I'm going to be eating some turkey and watching some football. And I'm actually traveling myself on Wednesday. So I already got a lot of stuff to get to on Wednesday. So we're going to be transitioning into week 13, going into next show on Wednesday. So be on the lookout. I'm going to give my thoughts on Shedeur. I want to talk about some Cowboys and Eagles some more. I got a lot more things I want to talk about when it pertains to that game. But thank you all for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, and I love y'all. Have some safe travels until I see you again on Wednesday. And look at my other videos down in the description. And let's continue to build the best empire in the world. I love you all, and I will see you all on Wednesday. Peace.